Hi, I'm Patty McGarrahan with The Mind's Eye, and I'm here today with Jean Mandeville, and I've known Jean for probably at least a decade now, and we've done classes together. We did trade readings for a while. We've done all kinds of stuff, and we both work at Pine Grove as well. It's a spiritual church in Connecticut, and I'd like to introduce Jean Mandeville, and thank you for coming today.
I'm happy to be with you,
Yes.
always.
Yeah, absolutely, me too. We always enjoy each other. You also do my psychic dinners and anything else I could drag you into, I do.
Thank you for dragging me.
Not a problem at all. We wanted to discuss Pine Grove for a little bit.
We do.
Yes.
It's I'm on the board there, and it's a wonderful, historic, spiritualist camp, but all faiths are welcome, and many faiths come.
Yes.
And I believe we're in our 142nd year.
Yes. Part of the building was actually transported by horse and carriage.
Yeah.
Part of the building, it's got a huge story for it. Whoever's the teacher, the house you stay in, has got like the part of that came horse and carriage, and it's got a crazy history to it.
I believe it came from Willimantic.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if it's horses or oxen, and it could be either one. And there's an original quilt hanging up from then. But you walk back into history with the age of some of the buildings. The temple was built in the 1920s without a nail, all tongue and groove, I believe.
Yep.
And the energy that has built from the mediums communicating with spirit there, it's a beautiful energy that has built for all of these years. And there's such a peaceful feeling there.
Right. I loved it, and Jean had recommended me for it, and then they accepted me to come in and do teaching for a week and services and stuff. And the energy was fantastic, but I misunderstood, and I thought I was camping. And Patty is, I need a 3.5 stars to camp, you know what I mean?
I understand.
So I had a car full of paper towels and toilet paper and everything you could think of, because I thought I was in a tent or something, or a cabin or whatever. And it was so funny because the woman that's in charge of it, it was sitting on the porch, and I thought that was her house. So I stood there, and she goes, "Do you want to see the inside of the house?" And I go, "Okay, but shouldn't I see where I'm going to stay?" And she looked at me like she was all confused, because that's where I was staying. So I had a 4-bedroom cottage, and I had a car full of stuff like I was going to be living out in the woods.
It's a good story, but your life is filled with good stories.
Yes, absolutely.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I tried to explain everything to you, but maybe I left out that part.
Well, it isn't even that. I'm always on this story, that story, up, down, around. So anyway, yeah. So I just heard camp. So I don't think you told me anything pro or con, but I heard the word camp and decided I had to.
Well, and it's kind of nicknamed a camp because when it started in the 1800s, people would come to their camp, their spot, and set up a tent and stay for the summer. And the name just stuck.
But the energy in that land is gorgeous.
It sure is. I love being there.
I do too. I do
And
too.
I'm very-
Sitting on a table, like a table over there, looking over the water, I could sit there for hours.
What a beautiful spot. And there's people in Niantic that live in Niantic and say, "We didn't know you were here." So we're trying to advertise better. Certainly by the time this airs, we're going to have the website well up and running. And there's a medium for every week that offers their own specialty for courses to teach. And check us out, pinegrovespiritualistcamp.net.
Yep. And it's a fabulous place, and it's so healing, and the energy is, and the people are fantastic. I didn't really get to know them because the first night at the church, I had like 9 people, regulars, because they didn't know who I was. Then Monday it was quiet, and then all of a sudden Tuesday, my mouth runneth over, and the rest of the week I was very busy. Yeah. So, but it's the energy and everything's fantastic, and the work you guys do, is definitely a nonprofit. doing its thing, and it's just absolutely wonderful, the healing and stuff that's come up. And it's great because, like, I even had a gentleman that I was working with, and I could see his abilities in mediumship. We've talked about this. I could see those abilities, and it wasn't coming out because nerves and scattered. So I turned around and I just said to him, take 3 deep breaths, and you're only going to be connecting to her husband, her father, nobody else but her father. And I'll never forget this man that couldn't come out with an amount because he got so nervous. He's twisted and stuff in the chair. I thought the chair was going to break. And all of a sudden, because he was connected to his family members that had likenesses, their family, you know what I mean, and having troubles dividing them up. And all of a sudden, he starts saying, ooh, your father drove a 1966 blue Impala with this, and this, and, you know, this dashboard and this, that. And I'm going, wow. Do you know what I mean?
Floodgates open.
Yes, it was like so incredible to listen to.
Something for everyone, and everyone has a gift. And by exploring what people feel called to at the camp, they can have moments like that. So you can see a medium style by going to a service and receive the beautiful healing energy from it. You can get classes on mediumship, classes on psychic. There's so much of a variety there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just very different people with very different styles, which is fun to learn from. Absolutely,
yeah.
You know? Yeah, we said it at the same time. But I was impressed with the place. And I did it with, should I be doing this or not? And loved it, ended up loving it.
Hooked.
Yep, it just took a trip. Just took a trip to hook me in.
It was, I think it was 2014, they had a medium that couldn't make it, so I was invited to fill in that day. And I was brand new to being out on the road, so to speak. Had attended First Spiritualists of Rhode Island.
Yep.
And I was beginning to I could say I was called into Connecticut, but I was pulled by my students, said it's time to start working here. And I sat on that podium, on that platform, and I was so teary. And I'm like, what has come over me, and why am I like this right now? And I said, it's 130-something years of mediums, and how did I land here too? How did this happen? And I was so touched. But people's spiritual paths are they're unique and they're interesting. And when I talk about people's spiritual paths, I say it's very important that we don't judge one another, or you're not doing it this way, or you're doing that and that, but why aren't you doing this and this? It's within our own souls that we end up gravitating or feeling called, and that spiritual path unfolds for us. And having just heard your prior interview with Chris Gusto, I just thought to myself, I love the spiritual movements that I see that are happening right now. And
there's a lot of them happening.
There are. And we're all finding each other. And it's so imperative that we accept one another's expressions and differences.
Absolutely. And I went into it, and I was asked many years ago, I did something in a couple of spiritual churches, one in Rhode Island, not the first one, the one, Positive New Beginnings one.
Yeah.
And I got asked to do that, and I did a couple of things in Massachusetts. And I immediately got thrown into the politics of it, like with 30 seconds
It's everywhere.
And I know it's everywhere, but I love it where I'm doing it now, because if you choose to not have anything to do with the politics, they allow it. I like to come in, do my song and dance, and leave. Do you know what I mean? And there's not a problem with that. And I think that's fabulous, you know?
And I think with the coordinators of whatever place it is, that they really can establish a no gossip rule, let's see the best in each other.
Right.
And that's it. That's what true spirituality
That's what
is
it should
supposed
be.
to be about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm very fortunate. I keep everything very guarded for my place, and it has to be, you know,
Positive.
positive. And if it's not, I'm learning how to put boundaries. I find it very hard in this industry, where when in the corporate world, I could be a son of a gun. I had no problems doing boundaries in the corporate world, to the point where I cut you off like a knife and throw you aside. But in this, it's so hard to do that. And I've had to learn, and I've had a couple of things come up in the last 2 years where that rest of that lessons come in, and it's and you got to do what you got to do, because if they're not authentic, I can't have you in my place. I can't have you making up stuff. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it's your reputation. It's your place.
Absolutely. And I had a girl come in and do an event, and all of a sudden, it's supposed to be this like advanced message, and it's coming through as like a rock star saying it. Do you know what I mean? And stuff. And I watched one of the girls that worked for me, her client. I watched her roll her eyes, and I knew she'd never be back. So I could never have that girl back. So I've had to put boundaries and stuff, and it's such a hard thing, because you want it to be loving, caring, and you want to help them heal too.
Our heart is in it. But there's also the business end of spirituality, and that our skills and our gifts are presented accurately and sincerely.
And plus, you and I started doing this where it was very critical. So in other words, until 12 years ago, I worked in a place above a set of stores, because the job that I had required that I kept that off the decks. Do you know what I mean? So I had to kind of keep it off, because there was still such a prejudice towards it. Two things happened. One is, all of a sudden I didn't care anymore. I had a boss that would rather have me stay than give it up. You know, and even though he wasn't necessarily a believer, he appreciated that I loved it. Do you know what I mean? And I found as time went on, we discovered he's more of a believer than he realizes. He's my brother in another life, you know, one of those things. Yeah. And that kind of stuff. And I just said, it's time. And a couple of things I did landed in newspaper articles, like when you used to read the newspaper. We don't do that anymore. Like small newspaper articles and stuff. And I had the son of the owner of the original business I did this in, came out and like freaking out about it. And I said, well, I'll quit if it bothers you. And he said, you would pick that over this? Absolutely. That's where my love is. That's where my heart is. Yep, the other stuff is money. That's all it is. And although you need it to live, I'll just change my lifestyle.
Well, I was a public school teacher, so I kept my
two. Really? Oh, you had to?
That?
Yeah, no, I didn't know
34 years.
Holy mackerel.
So that's how separate I kept these careers. I didn't know you didn't know that.
I didn't know that, no.
And all at elementary level. And so I was like a closet medium, you know. And I had this, what I called my second career, all set up. And then retired from teaching, because we got to keep our day jobs till a certain point.
Yep.
And how nice to just be ourselves, be our authentic selves.
Isn't it wonderful? I turned to my boss, and I was not eligible for retirement, but I turned to my boss. I had been running the business for over 12 years, so I did have clientele and stuff like that. And I turned to my boss and I said, my ego no longer needs this. And he looked at me and I said, you can never level off. You always have to bring it up to the next level for your ego. And my ego loved that I was in construction, a man's world, and I could run the whole show. Do you know what I mean? And I really liked that. So, and I had a dad that always says to me that, oh, you're going to be better than any of these guys. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to run businesses.
I remember those years
stuff.
when you did that.
And in that process of it, when I told him that, and I said that I need to take the ego out of my life, and he looked at me and he said, he gave me an incredible offer if I stayed 2 years, bonus packages, and that he would keep my Blue Cross until I was 65.
Oh, that's That's a lot.
I was gone to 3.5
great.
years. He paid it for 3.5 years after I left.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, and so, but it was the strangest thing. The moment I said that at work, I noticed that when I was doing readings and stuff, I no longer worried if people didn't get what I had to say to them. I just turned and say, take it with you. Because
Yeah.
the ego completely left out of that too.
Now, when you retired, did you feel a difference in your gifts? When you got freed up with...
I did feel a difference with the gifts, but I'll tell you, I joke that I'm an accountant that now does it for free. Do you know what I mean? And I had to laugh because I have a group of 5 people that I still do them for, and 3 of them are companies, and one of them gives me the paperwork in a bag, a garbage bag. Do you know what I mean? And what I found is I have to have them give it to me in sections, because I find going into that left brain
That's
much
what I
more
was
difficult.
thinking. Yeah.
Much more difficult. So I loved it. I'm one of those people that didn't have to do drugs, because I would love to go to the movies and eat salty popcorn and then eat a raisinette. And then my husband says, thank God you didn't do drugs. Because I sit there and go, ooh, do you know what I mean? The salt and the thing. And I still love that salt and the sweet at the same time, like messing with your head, right? So I've always been one of those that like that. So I enjoyed 6 o'clock leaving the left-brained business, 6:30 arriving, and flipping my brain to the other side like that.
That's
and I was
awesome.
really good at doing it fast. The second step, I have a spirit guide that helps me flip it. And then I'd go in and I'd be on the roll. Where other people that came to work for me needed that half an hour to kind of zen out, and I could just flip. Well, I found once I retired from the corporate world, all of a sudden I have no problem going on the right brain, but and I still have the left brain, the business mind left brain, but nothing
We're
like,
always going to use some of it.
yeah, but nothing like I did before. So I'm sitting there the first year after I left, and I've got all these people's paperwork for the tax returns, and I'm like, I can't even figure out what 1 + 1 is. I'm having such a heck of a time. So I have a new rule now. They have to give me 6 months, then 3 months, then 3 months, because I can't do everybody's whole year and stay focused on it.
We do switch areas of the brain for our work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's a big flip. You know,
Little
teaching,
bit.
yeah, that's a big flip. And accounting and controller. You know, I left as a controller of a $32 million company, and all of a sudden you know what I mean? I'm talking
to spirits
somebody
all the
said to me,
time.
Patty, you're always so busy. How can you retire? He goes, what are you going to do? I said, talk to dead people. And my boss said, will
there
you
you
stop
go.
telling people that? Because he worried about, you know, what the...
But we
a little
love
bit.
what we do, and you know, of course, everyone has major losses of people that they love.
Mm-hmm.
And my major losses started in high school, in 9th grade, losing a father and brother 10 months apart. And
wow,
I
so
could
sorry.
not
Yeah.
find answers to what happens when we die. I strongly, my father went first. I strongly felt his presence around me. And I didn't know I was a medium. Mom was a medium. Her mother was a medium. But they had no network, no vocabulary, no understanding. And I feel so fortunate that the consciousness began to change in this country. And you've talked about that how we knew when to be born.
Yep.
You know, because now there's such acceptance and more of an understanding of our gifts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was so, like, when I first did it, like I said, I stayed hidden, and as much as I could, and it was word of mouth, and that's what I had to use and keep it to that extent at first, and then I just didn't give a hoot anymore. And
yeah, I very much had the same feelings, and how wonderful to just be ourselves and have that freedom.
Yes.
And find the amount of acceptance that we do.
My mother said to me, when I opened up the mind's eye, my mother said to me, now what do you say? What do I tell my friend you did? And I said to him, they're all dead, Mom, so what do you care? She looked at me and she went,
They're going to be very accepting.
So she kind of growled and snarled at me a little bit, but then my father was like laughing in the corner, falling on the floor when I said it, because it was like, I'm still an accountant, I'm still a controller of a company. If that's what you need to say, go for
And I
it.
find that people who, some people are they have fear in them. I find less and less of that. I find very little of it,
First
actually.
of all, what's happening that I think that's happening in the world, and I'd love your opinion. I think so many crystal children are being born. So I'm doing readings, and my readings always seem to be people that also want to be taught stuff. Like the teacher in me comes out.
I love
you know?
teaching it,
I know,
yeah.
me too. And a lot of times, grandmothers and mothers are opening up to not close off these beautiful crystal children that are going to save our butts. They really are. You know what I mean? They're
Counting on
incredible. They're 45, 50-year-olds in 2-year-old bodies. You know what I mean? And it's so cool watching the opening up process. And then I have some people that actually bring in little kids because they don't know what to do with it. And I let them come in. I don't charge for anything. I just say, come on in, bring the little one, and we'll talk. And I think this being such a burst of that. So what's happened is a lot of people are opening up. So all of a sudden, the overthinking of what we're doing and judging has ended because they're getting stuff.
It's a different Did you see me just shiver? A spirit came close.
Yeah, I saw it. Did you see me do that? I was like pushing the side so we could continue talking. But in here too, I have been very open since a child. And I remember 7 years old, I tell the story all the time. My students are probably sick of hearing it. But 7 years old, the Sunday school teacher, and it was a Baptist church, so we weren't like heavy or anything, but mentioned hell. And I looked at her and I said, God loves us. He's not going to send us to hell. And I said, that's the first floor of heaven. So she turned to me and she said to me, explain to me. And I said, there's a bunch of floors in heaven. And the first floor is for the people that don't know how to be good people yet. And then I also, and then I said the second floor and the third. So I heard her when I was waiting for my parents to come out of church. And she said, I think I have to quit teaching this because I have a 7-year-old that seems to know more than I do. So the minister had me go into his office, and my mother and father, I could see them through the window, and my mother and father were going, what did she say now? And the minister was fabulous, and he was not a young man, but he was very open to what I had to say, and he thought it was absolutely terrific. And it was so funny because it was probably 15, 20 years ago, all of a sudden you're seeing the 7 Mansions in the Sky by Carolyn Miss, and Sylvia Brown's talking about the 7 stories of heaven. And I'm like, that's so beautiful that Spirit gave me that gift to understand it. You know what I mean? But then I closed off at 13.
Not unusual.
Yeah. I turned to a bunch of friends and I said, isn't it beautiful that the 7th graders have all their great grandparents with them so they won't be scared the first day of school? And they looked at me like I had 3 heads of tail, and I shut it off. And then 2 weeks after I turned 18, I graduated from high school. 2 weeks after I graduated, it was like it blew open again. It is crazy, huh?
I remember being in 7th grade gym class, and we brought up, oh, you know that there's like a glow around people. And some kids went, yeah, I see that. And other kids went, no.
What are you talking about? Yeah. Yes. I didn't realize that a lot of times that glow is also 5th level people that didn't need to be down here but came here to move their families farther across. And
Love that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and a lot of them
Are we glowing?
Yeah, and a lot of them too, a lot of those 5th level souls weren't staying here for any length of time too with it. And I laughed because I had a family from India, and when I ever told them that the son, I just told my daughter because it was a friend of hers, a girlfriend of hers that married into the family, and they were all like losing it, and I can't understand. He was a fabulous person. I laughed because they were all about this height, and the brother was this big, big man. And I always say, and he had like the wider nose, and he looked like Lurch almost, you know what I mean? And yet he was so beloved. Every child like adored him. And even my husband said, who didn't believe in any of this stuff, do you see the glow around him? I love that kid. And he got married, and after they do the 30-day ceremony over there, a truck tipped over on top of him. His wife got one scratch on her arm, and he died.
Wow.
And I got told, he came to me very quickly afterwards and told me the fifth level soul gave me all this information. So I said to my daughter, when Amit's ready, have him call me. He doesn't have to book an appointment, just have him call me because his brother's already come. So I think it was the year anniversary. And you know what was beautiful? Spirit is so cool.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. I gave him a reading. His mother got one in India, and they were like almost verbatim. And I didn't know this.
That's awesome.
But in India, it's an honor to have a fifth level soul come in your family. It's a huge big deal over there. So it did.
And they can recognize this.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah.
So it's
very good.
You and I have both been around the block a few times, and we have some great stories and great things going on. And I got to tell you, I actually worked at Pine Grove with some of your students, and a couple of people at the shop have been taught from you, and you do have a very good reputation as a teacher.
You.
You are fabulous, my dear.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What a
fabulous.
difference teaching adults and teaching kids. And I loved kids, but 34 years of even doing something that you like is a long time. And teaching adult spirituality is, I'm teaching nationally now. It's I just love that.
Excellent. That's incredible. So in here, Jean, how can people get a hold of you on Facebook?
On Facebook.
And it's under Jean Mandeville?
It is.
It is under Jean Mandeville. And do you have a phone number, or do you not give that out? Or
Well, they could email me.
Email you? At what email?
jean.mandeville@gmail.com.
Excellent. And if anybody has any problems getting a hold of her, just contact me and I'll connect you. And like I said, I've had many people, I did a couple of readings on people that you've taught for a while. And as I said, applauding your teaching and stuff like that. And I met Jean because didn't you take hypnotherapy with me?
I did.
Yeah, so you did the hypnosis with us.
Somehow I found out about you. I don't remember how.
I don't even remember either, but it was wonderful working with you. And then, like I said, every once in a while we do the trade readings, and now you do the psychic dinners and stuff like that with me, and I love having you around.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing, and we think a lot the same.
Yeah.
And
scary.
Isn't that scary? I have to agree
God
with
help
you.
us. Whoever's around us.
I know it. Talking in our own little language, in our own little way, and stuff like that. But we're so much the same and so different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's an absolutely beautiful thing. I thank you so much for tying me into Pine Grove, because it was through you that I ended up in there. And I really did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to this year as well.
Thanks so much for coming back.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And your week is?
August 11th. This will have already this will play afterwards, but
I think my week is July 7th. It's the Sunday after July 4th, whatever date that is.
Yes, and August 11th, and it is a beautiful place for people to check out, because the energy is
very
absolutely
healing.
Very, very healing. That land I could sit on. You know what I mean?
It's very special. I've worked at a few spiritualist camps.
Yep, and I know you have, but there's just something about that energy that I just love, and I thank you for bringing that to me. Thank you for being with us, and if anybody does want to get a hold of her, do let me know, and I will make sure that she gets contacted if you have any problems. And you're, as I said, an excellent teacher as well as a reader.
Make me feel good.
Yes, well, you should, because you do a good job. You've helped a lot of people.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm telling you have. So thank you so much. So I think we're done. I always